It should have been a perfect night. Panoramic views, crisp fall air softened by heat lamps and money. The kind of rooftop terrace where your coat gets taken before you realize it's off your shoulders, and the rose arrives before you ask for it. Laura looked like a magazine spread, black silk dress, gold watch catching the light, and I played my role as the quietly supportive husband in a tailored charcoal suit. The room shimmered with that curated corporate energy. Half champagne, half performance. Her firm was celebrating the successful close of their mentorship initiative, a program I had heard so much about but never once seen detailed in a quarterly report. It wasn't my world, but I was invited. Laura said the board liked to see engaged partners during milestones. In hindsight, I should have known something was off when she insisted I come. But it wasn't until Gabe showed up that I understood why. Gabe, her boss, the visionary. 40-something, sharp jawline, louder shirt than necessary. His voice was the first thing I heard when we entered the private section. Commanding, amused, practiced. He was telling a story to a cluster of analysts, gesturing with his whiskey glass like a man who believed in his own legend. And from the second he noticed me, he turned it into a game. First, the handshake, too firm, with that extra beat of eye contact meant to size me up. Then the first jab. So you're the famous Sam. Heard a lot about the mystery man. Famous? Mystery? I smiled politely, even as I clocked Laura's micro-expression. A small twitch at the corner of her mouth. She didn't correct him. Later, during a toast, Gabe leaned over and said just loud enough for others to hear, "Always admire guys who can afford to chase passion instead of paychecks." The crowd laughed. Some of them weren't sure why, but they followed the cue. Laura gave me a quick glance. Was that apology or warning? I stayed quiet. Still water. Then dessert rolled around, and Gabe ramped it up. "We really should thank Laura," he said, holding his glass aloft. "She's been doing the work of two people lately, and dragging along her, freelance husband, too." That got a bigger laugh. Even the CFO cracked a grin. I watched the joke land. Watched Laura freeze just for a second. I set my glass down. "Funny," I said coolly. The board didn't seem to mind the freelance resume when they routed the recap deal through my firm. Silence. Real silence. Like someone hit pause. You could almost hear the realization ripple across the table. Gabe blinked. One of the partners did a double take. A junior analyst mouthed, "Oh." Laura's smile stayed frozen on her face. "I consult for the board independently," I added. "They looped me in 3 months ago. I've been guiding the capital structure review." I let it hang there. No need to puff my chest. The room was recalibrating all on its own. Gabe cleared his throat. "Well, small world. Smaller than you think," I said and smiled. That should have been the turning point. But fate wasn't done yet. Maybe 20 minutes later, during another round of bubbly, the maitre d' appeared beside our table. "Madam," he said, offering Laura her clutch, "you left this at coat check." She reached for it, still mid-laugh. But when she pulled it across her lap, something slipped out and landed neatly in front of her plate. A hotel keycard. Lakefront Suites, room 1427. My eyes snapped to it. So did everyone else's. Gabe froze. Laura blinked. The watch on her wrist buzzed. She glanced down instinctively, and I saw the notification flash across the small screen. Second guest access. Room 1427, granted yesterday, 10:47 p.m. She didn't flinch. "Oh, that's nothing," she said, scooping the keycard up like it was a gum wrapper. "Gabe had me check in a vendor last night. His assistant's on vacation, and we needed somewhere quiet to hash out terms." She turned to me with a theatrical sigh. "Sam's been on edge lately. Thinks every calendar invite is a secret mission. You know how married life gets." She was already pivoting. The others chuckled nervously. Someone raised a glass, eager to change the subject. I saw one of Gabe's analysts lean over to whisper something. Another woman looked away. Laura, meanwhile, went for the K*LL actually. She said, "This is a perfect example of how our mentorship program works. Gabe's been generous with his time. Not just with me, but across the team. We've built something real, supportive, transparent. She said transparent like it was a dare. And the room believed her, or at least pretended to, because in a space like that, image outranked truth. I didn't argue. I didn't question the story, because I didn't have to. The cufflink on my sleeve, subtle matte black, and linked to a private relay, had recorded every word of Gabe's toast, every dig, every twitch of tension. The audio was already backed up to a time-stamped archive. My phone, in silent sync with hers since August, had mirrored all messages flagged work-related, including the ones deleted within 30 seconds. The metadata, stored. Guest logs from lakefront, pulled. Photo timestamps, cross-referenced. Everything I needed was already in motion, legal, witnessed, documented. The only variable left was her. I sat back, sipping my champagne, watching my wife laugh too brightly as the topic shifted to market trends. And in that moment, I wasn't angry. I was ready. After the party, the city kept moving like nothing happened. Downtown pulsed with weekend life. Ubers gliding across slick pavement. Rooftop bars humming. People in their own bubbles of good wine and easy company. Laura insisted on staying out, said her team was still celebrating, and I should get some rest. She kissed me on the cheek like I was an obligation checked off the list, then disappeared back into the elevator before I could answer. I walked 5 blocks to the garage in the dark, my breath fogging in the cold, head full of static. By the time I reached the car, I knew exactly what I was going to do next. But before I could move forward, I had to walk myself back. Through the quiet spiral I hadn't wanted to admit was happening. It didn't start with a smoking G*N. It never does. It started with heels. Mint green, pointed toe, patent leather. Laura had never owned anything that color. They showed up in the closet one day, tucked behind her standard blacks and nudes. When I asked if they were new, she just said, "Old Nordstrom pickup," and moved on. But I knew what I'd bought her. I always knew. She wasn't careless with gifts. She kept the tags from the ones she loved. Then came the conference in Austin. A last-minute flight, 3 nights. Said it was a speaking engagement for a fintech client that needed optics, her word. But she didn't post about it. No photos, no slides, no panel tags. Just a single Instagram story of breakfast tacos and an unreadable caption. Fuel before the pitch. 2 weeks later, it was Milwaukee. Compliance boot camp, she said. We're revamping our internal framework. I didn't even push. But something about her face when she said it felt too still. Like she was reciting someone else's story. What got me wasn't the travel, it was the pattern. Both trips lined up with Gabe's calendar. He'd spoken at Austin's Finance Roundtable. Was photographed at the Milwaukee Tech Forum, front row. It wasn't hard to connect the dots. I still had access to the event rosters if I wanted to look. I didn't need to. The timing was too perfect. One morning, I reached for our shared digital calendar to check a dentist appointment and found nothing. Blank. She had wiped the whole thing clean. When I asked, she shrugged. I didn't realize we were still using that. You always book your stuff manually. Except I didn't. I relied on that sync to avoid conflicts. Her deleting it was a choice. A message. It wasn't long after that I noticed the Wi-Fi network saved on her phone. I was helping her hotspot her tablet in a hotel lobby when the known networks list flashed open. Home, office guest, Starbucks secure, and lakefront suites under service. I scrolled past it, didn't say a word, but my stomach turned. There's only one lakefront suites in the city. It wasn't a chain hotel. It was the kind of place booked for privacy. I began to catalog things in my head, as if prepping an audit I didn't want to write. There were the messages. Her Slack and email replies used to be full of typos, emojis, half-sentences like a normal human. Then suddenly, every reply read like it had been ghostwritten by legal. No punctuation slip-ups. No personality. Even her texts had gone sterile. And the phone habits. She used to leave it faced up on the kitchen counter, buzzing with group chats, podcast alerts, memes. Now it lived face down, locked, with an aggressive new password I definitely hadn't set. Calls she used to take while making dinner she now took in the stairwell or just needed to step outside for a sec. Always just a sec. Always in socks. One night, she came home late from strategy drinks. Her hair was messy in a way that didn't match her energy. Not fun messy. Win messy. She hugged me like a cousin and smelled like perfume I didn't recognize. Not hers. Not mine. Not even something on her dresser. "You okay?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, unbothered. "Long day. You're sweet." And she disappeared into the bathroom. I checked her corporate card statements. I had the login from when I helped her track miles. I wasn't proud of it, but I needed to see. One line stuck out. Dinner at Bistro Marceau, 9:42 p.m. 2 entrees, wine pairing. I knew that place. It was walking distance from Lakefront Suites. I kept waiting for something concrete, something undeniable. But cheating isn't always a headline. Sometimes it's a breadcrumb trail of things that don't line up. 1,000 paper cuts. I watched her makeup style shift. The color palettes. A bolder lipstick she swore looked too much 6 months ago. I watched her stop asking if I wanted tea when she made hers. I watched her turn off shared location on Find My Friends with no explanation. And the worst part? I convinced myself it wasn't enough. I told myself people change. That I was being paranoid. That Laura had been under pressure and I should be supportive. That suspicion was a sign of insecurity, not insight. I gaslit myself into silence. But the signs kept showing up. Like the third-floor lounge at her office. Closed to non-leads. No client interface. I'd surprised her once after work with her favorite Thai takeout and buzzed up from the lobby. She was just finishing up a call and asked me to wait. 32 minutes later, she came down flushed and smiling. Said she couldn't eat yet, had to run. The takeout sat in the car with me while I drove home listening to silence. Her team Slack was public for some folders. I browsed it one evening just to see her latest deck. What I found instead was a comment thread from Gabe, posted at 11:58 p.m. One night, Laura, thanks again for the late push. Not everyone stays in the foxhole. Appreciate the discretion. Discretion. What a word. I ***ed it, saved it under a random name in a folder she didn't know I used. And then I started building my own folder. A copy of her hotel folio from Austin, obtained by calling the front desk and posing as a client confirming a meeting. No record of a conference block. Just her solo booking, upgraded to Executive King. Photos from Gabe's Instagram, cropped carefully to avoid tagging anyone. But in the background of one hotel bar mirror selfie, a sliver of green heel on a crossed leg. The same shade I found in our closet. She never wore them for me. The photo was time-stamped 11:02 p.m. Eventually, everything pointed to one location. Room 1427. Gabe's temporary residence. The suite that kept showing up in metadata. The one that matched the keycard. The night she dropped it on the table, it wasn't a mistake. It was the first time I saw it all in the open. And she didn't even blink. She flipped it back on me like I was the one invading her privacy. Like I was the story. That night, while she toasted mentorship, I was already preparing the packet. The one that would hold hotel logs, guest access records, cross-checked Slack messages, and financial timestamps. Not just for her. For the board. Because I wasn't the only one they were lying to. There's a moment, somewhere between doubt and certainty, when your body stops pretending it doesn't know the truth. For me, that moment came on a Tuesday night, 3 days after the rooftop party. Laura was staying late again. An internal audit? Apparently. And I was sitting in the car 2 blocks from Lakefront Suites, watching the lights flicker across the building's mirrored glass. I told myself I wasn't going to go, that it was beneath me. But once you've seen the card, once you've watched a lie being born right in front of you, the need for proof becomes oxygen. At 10:36 p.m., I saw her. She stepped out of a rideshare, black coat, hair tied back, no umbrella though it was misting. She didn't hesitate, just walked straight into the lobby, phone in hand. 10 minutes later, the man I'd expected followed. Gabe, navy suit, no tie, Same casual arrogance even at night. He greeted the front desk staff like a regular. They both disappeared into the elevator. I didn't follow. I didn't need to. Everything after that became documentation. The next morning, I met with a friend of mine, Evan, who runs risk compliance for one of the board's partner funds. We'd worked together before, and though I didn't tell him everything, I told him enough. He connected me with a private investigator his firm occasionally used for internal misconduct cases. Her name was Dana, former security analyst. Sharp, calm, spoke like she'd been here before 1,000 times. "I'll need legal clarity," she said. "You're authorized to collect on shared assets, digital correspondence, and anything public-facing. Anything beyond that, get consent or a subpoena." I nodded. "You'll have it." She smiled slightly. "Then you'll have your answer in 72 hours. And she did. Day 1. Digital confirmation. She mirrored Laura's corporate card transactions, matched the hotel receipts. The 1-4 lakefront suites stood out immediately. 2 key cards issued for one room, 1427. Billing routed to Gabe's executive account. Day 2, security data. The electronic lock records were pulled through a cooperating staff member. They showed access at 2:13 a.m. by Laura's key, then Gabe's 5 seconds later. Door closed, locked, reopened at 6:27. No other entries between. Day 3, physical evidence. Camera footage from the hallway timestamped. Dana didn't narrate when she played it back for me. She didn't have to. There they were. Same elevator. Same smiles. Same hand brushing the other's back. Laura glancing around once before the door opened. She wore the mint heels. There was no ambiguity left. The images didn't burn, they numbed. Like anesthesia. The part of me that wanted to shout or break something had already died a quiet death weeks earlier. All that remained was a strange, almost professional calm. I thanked Dana, wired her payment, and drove straight to the parking garage under Laura's building. I parked in her usual spot, 3rd floor, back row, and waited. The envelope sat on the hood beside me. Hotel invoice, lock log, photos, printouts of messages. Each piece of paper like a nail closing the coffin on our life. When she finally appeared, she was talking on the phone, voice bright and melodic, the tone she used when she wanted to be admired. I watched her stop mid-step as she recognized my car. Her expression flickered, surprise, then calculation. Always calculation. "Hey," she said carefully, hanging up. "What are you doing here?" I didn't answer. I just looked down at the envelope between us. She frowned, the kind of frown she used when an assistant misfiled something. "What's that?" "Read it," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Flat, like someone narrating a report. She hesitated, then opened it. One by one, she slid out the pages. The receipts first, then the access logs, then the still frame, grainy but unmistakable. Her face drained of color, her lips parted. But she didn't cry. Laura never cried when cornered. She just assessed, calculated. After a long silence, she looked up and said, "Where did you get this? Does it matter?" Her mouth tightened. "You invaded my privacy. That's your takeaway?" She didn't answer. She started pacing slowly beside the car, holding the papers like she could will them into another story. "This isn't what it looks like," she said finally. The words were automatic, reflexive. I laughed, softly, bitterly. "It's exactly what it looks like, and you know it." She stopped moving then. For the first time, her voice cracked. "Sam, please just listen. Things got complicated, and Complicated? I interrupted. "Is that what you call spending the night in your boss's room?" She looked away. I could see the panic start to splinter behind her eyes. But what replaced it wasn't remorse. It was strategy. "You don't understand," she said, steadier now. "You think this is about an affair, but it's not. It's political. Gabe, he's been pushing for control over the board's restructuring. He needed leverage. I was helping. By sleeping with him?" Her jaw tightened. "By making sure he trusted me." You're not the only one who knows how deals get made. There it was. The pivot. The shift from guilt to justification. She couldn't win the argument on morality, so she went tactical. But it didn't matter anymore. You're done talking, I said quietly. This isn't a negotiation. For a moment I thought she might still fight, deny, twist. But then she looked at the papers again, the timestamps, the camera stills, and I saw it in her posture. The resignation. The math. She wasn't planning an apology. She was planning next moves. Damage control. Her next words proved it. What do you want, Sam? She asked. Calm now. Money? Silence? To humiliate me? Because whatever this is, it doesn't end with you storming into HR or the boardroom. You'll burn both of us. I don't want to burn you, I said. I just want the truth on record. Then what? Then the system decides. She stared at me like she was looking at a stranger. And maybe she was. After that, she didn't beg, didn't scream. She just gathered the papers, slid them back into the envelope, and placed it gently on the hood. Then she turned and walked away, heels clicking across the concrete. No backward glance, no apology, just the quiet confidence of someone already rewriting the narrative in her head. I waited until her footsteps faded, then picked up the envelope again. My reflection stared back at me from the car's glossy paint. Tired, hollow, but steady. Everything was in place now. The proof existed. The story couldn't be spun forever. And for the first time in months, I felt something close to clarity. Not peace. Not yet. But the faint outline of it waiting somewhere beyond the wreckage. There's something strange that happens once the truth is no longer a question. When you stop wondering, stop hoping, stop searching for alternate explanations, what's left isn't relief. It's silence. Not peace, but space. A kind of internal void where instinct used to be. And in that space, you can finally plan. I gave myself 24 hours after the garage. No texts. No phone calls. Laura didn't try to contact me either, which told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't scrambling. She was calculating. Preparing for the version of this where she controlled the story, or at least softened the impact before it reached the wrong ears. I, on the other hand, already knew who to call next. Julie. We'd never been close. Gabe's wife was more of a LinkedIn connection than a friend. We'd met at a few holiday functions, exchanged tight smiles, did the usual polite dance. But we both watched our spouses in the same way, attentively, protectively, like people trying to read a second language. I always sensed something in her eyes. Not suspicion exactly, more like exhaustion. A woman playing along while holding her breath. So I reached out. I didn't send the dossier or a summary, just one line. I think it's time we compare notes. She replied 10 minutes later. Co-working lounge by the courthouse. Thursday, noon. Private booth. The tone didn't surprise me. Julie wasn't dramatic. She was deliberate. When I arrived, she was already there. Blazer, hair pinned, no makeup. Just a woman who looked like she'd already cried out everything weeks ago and decided never to do it again. She didn't start with pleasantries. You have proof? She asked, without looking up. Yes. Good. I do too. She handed me a manila folder, no label, just a thin red tab. Inside were **TS, calendars, photos, forwarded messages from other employees. Nothing explosive on its own, but damning when threaded together. Pattern. He's done this before, she said. Not always physically, but enough to shift the dynamic. New mentee, more attention, then a quiet departure. Sometimes they transfer. Sometimes they disappear, but there's always a trail. How long have you known? She shrugged. Known? Months. Suspected? Years. And you stayed. Julie looked at me then, her eyes sharper than I remembered. Don't ask me that. You stayed too. Fair point. We sat in silence for a moment. Two people who'd played loyal roles too long, suddenly reading off a different script. I'm not trying to blow this up, I said eventually. But it's not just about him, or even her. It's the structure. The way they positioned this under mentorship, it was strategic. Groomed under the language of opportunity. Julie nodded. They didn't violate policy, but they broke trust. And the board needs to know. That's where you come in, she said. I heard about the recapitalization deal. They respect you. They respect results, I corrected. But I can use that. We sketched it out over coffee gone cold. A multi-pronged approach, not reactive but procedural. Quiet, precise, no scandal. Just enough pressure to trigger internal review. I reached out next to someone who owed me a favor, Troy. Troy runs a boutique media risk strategy firm. He's the guy firms call when something is about to go public and they want to shape, not bury, the story. He's not tabloid. He's surgical. We met after hours in his office, a minimalist space above a design agency. I handed him a USB drive. Gabe's voice is on the audio, I said. The timestamps match the metadata. And there's more screen captures, logs, and internal threads that show favoritism. None of it is doctored. And your endgame? Accountability. Quiet if possible. Transparent if not. I'm not here for revenge porn. I want the machine to turn on itself. Troy smiled. You want the system to clean its own mess. Smart. Slow but smart. He opened his laptop. Let's build the map. First, internal signals. Anonymous but precise. Names, dates, and language that can't be ignored without raising compliance red flags. Second, pressure channels. A few trusted financial blogs. Corporate ethics groups. Not exposés, just data drops. Enough to raise questions in spaces where questions carry weight. Third, safeguard lanes. A secure folder routed to the firm's compliance portal. Time released if untouched for 72 hours. Automatic alerts if anything gets blocked or erased. Julie provided the context, former ments, pattern language, exit survey quotes. I curated the timeline. Troy sanitized the formatting, removed bias, made it read like what it was. A procedural prompt, not an accusation. We were building a case not against a man, but against an environment. The final version was lean, clean, and impossible to ignore. This will trigger protocol, Troy said. Even if they try to suppress it, someone will ask the right question. And when they do, you stay calm, you stay quiet, and you let their own ethics policy do the work. I nodded. Good. Troy glanced at me over his monitor. You sure you don't want to drop the hammer? Media would eat this up. I don't want noise, I said. I want clarity. He leaned back, spoken like someone who's been through hell, or someone who's tired of being lied to. By the time I left his office, the first 2 signals had already been queued. A third was scheduled for Monday morning. The audio clips were cleaned, embedded in the metadata, uploaded to an encrypted drive with passive distribution protocols. If anyone tried to suppress it, the chain would escalate. Julie and I agreed not to speak again unless necessary. Her part was done. She'd risked more than I had, her social ties, her standing, but she never blinked. That, more than anything, told me this wasn't just strategy for her. It was self-respect. Later that night, I walked past Laura in the kitchen. She didn't speak. Neither did I. She knew something had shifted. Not anger, not betrayal, just inevitability. The pause before the wave. Monday started quiet. Laura left early, pretending nothing was wrong. She still gave me that same casual "have a good one" over her shoulder, like she wasn't walking into a building where the walls were about to whisper her name. I didn't respond. I just watched her leave. She was wearing the mentorship pin again, the little brushed gold emblem the firm gave out to participants. Ironic, given what was coming. By 10 a.m., the first signal hit compliance. It wasn't a bomb. No accusations. Just an internal message sent from a masked alias, one of Troy's carefully routed accounts. It outlined a pattern. Project teams shifted to align with mentorship candidates, irregular travel reimbursements matching executive itineraries, and unexplained access permissions to executive floor lounges after hours. It included dates, departments, and neutral **TS. No judgment, just facts. 3 more signals followed, each time to hit different inboxes. One flagged inconsistencies in expense reports from Gabe's division. One cited the firm's mentorship policy alongside anonymized exit interviews, hinting at blurred boundaries. One, the most delicate, embedded a redacted email thread. Austin was worth it. That subject line said everything without saying anything. The content was subtle but unmistakable. Casual tone. Inside jokes. A reference to grabbing a nightcap again. Same spot, same view. No overt language, but it didn't need any. Not between two people already in the know. That message had been accidentally included in a looped thread to a shared team inbox, where at least 40 staff had access. The kind of mistake no one admits, but everyone sees. By noon, the internal Slack was vibrating. People didn't say names, but everyone knew. One thread, hidden in a subchannel. Anyone else seeing weird crossover between mentorship and travel budget? Another, 1427, as a reaction emoji. Subtle, spiteful, viral. That afternoon, a junior compliance officer flagged the reimbursements as a formal risk inquiry. Not publicly, but the timestamp on the audit log was visible if you knew where to look. Julie pinged me with a simple update. Financial controller just requested HR crossover reports. No explanation given. Troy was tracking the digital metrics. By 3:18 p.m. an anonymous post went live on the firm's internal forum. Title: Mentorship as a Lever. What are we protecting? It didn't name anyone. It was written like a think piece. Reflective. Reasonable. But every person who read it could fill in the blanks. My favorite paragraph. The danger isn't mentorship. It's when mentorship becomes a smokescreen for access, favor, and power, when the elevator ride to the top includes a stop at a hotel suite, unrecorded, unexplained. Gabe's name wasn't mentioned, neither was Laura's. But by the time it hit the industry blog circuit, disguised as an op-ed from an anonymous senior consultant, the context had followed it. Troy called me that evening. They're rattled, he said. Board scheduled an emergency session for Thursday. HR's doing a pulse check survey tomorrow. That only happens when they smell smoke and don't know where the fire is yet. Good. Need me to push anything else? Not yet. Let them chew what they've already swallowed. He paused. You sure about staying quiet? Yes. I'm just saying, if you want public validation, I'm not looking for applause, Troy. I want the system to correct itself. He exhaled like he respected that but didn't agree. The next morning, I heard Laura take a call on speaker in the bathroom. She didn't know I was within *T. I just think we need to get ahead of this, she was saying. If there's a misinterpretation, I'd rather shape the narrative before it spirals. Then silence. Then, no, I haven't heard anything from Sam. He's being distant. Probably just work stuff. I almost laughed. That evening, the HR compliance head sent an internal memo to all division leads. The language was classic corporate panic, formal, sterile, filled with terms like environmental audit, mentorship efficacy review, and culture recalibration. Translation: they were spooked. Another email hit the same thread 15 minutes later. It was from the board's ethics liaison. All senior mentorship pairings are now frozen pending reevaluation of terms. And just like that, the game changed. Julie messaged again. Gabe postponed 2 internal check-ins. His calendar just went on lockdown. He's leaking. She followed it up with a photo, not of him, but of the main elevator screen from HQ. It displayed a slide cycling through corporate values. For the first time, someone had added a new one. Integrity isn't quiet. I couldn't tell if it was intentional or sabotage, but it was perfect. By Wednesday night, the professional blogs picked it up. It started with a whisper on a finance watchdog page. Sources say a Fortune 500 firm is facing quiet internal inquiries over executive mentorship abuses. A named partner allegedly used mentorship as a shield for repeated policy violations. More to come. They didn't cite names, but insiders knew. And once people know, silence becomes its own kind of admission. Laura didn't say anything to me that night, but her body language did. Shoulders tense. Eyes always on her phone. She kept stepping out to check on a project, even though I knew, thanks to a sync still active on her old laptop. She hadn't sent a single work message in over an hour. Thursday morning, a final push came from an unlikely place. A mid-level data analyst posted a training document on the internal portal. It was disguised as a workflow guide, but the examples used for risk tag escalation featured eerily familiar language. If guest key 1427 is accessed after hours, flag for audit. Patterns involving repeated cross-functional escalations between mentor and mentee should be tagged for lateral bias. It was practically a dare. By the time the board met that afternoon, they didn't need a whistleblower. They had the ecosystem turning on itself. Julie texted me just after sunset. Closed session over. Exec summary redacted. But Gabe walked out first. Didn't look at anyone. And Laura stayed behind. Alone. 10 minutes. No one knows what was said. That night, Laura came home late. She didn't offer excuses. She didn't lie. She just stood in the doorway, looking at me like she was waiting for me to say something first. I didn't. She exhaled, dropped her bag, and asked, "Do you think this is going to follow us?" I looked at her for a long time, then said, "It already has." She nodded slowly. Then, without a word, she walked upstairs. And I didn't follow. Gabe resigned Monday morning. HR's memo framed it as restructuring. Laura declined a quiet transfer and instead left the firm entirely. No apology, just a box and a note on the counter. We finalized the divorce within weeks. The firm launched an external audit. The deal I was leading, it moved forward with stricter ethics protocols. Exactly what I wanted. Alone now, I rebuilt. Morning runs replaced late-night doubts. I visited my brother, read books, ignored old routines. Julie sent updates. Discreetly, the system was burning itself clean. One day, at a quiet roadside diner, I opened a blank document. Not to collect evidence. Not for strategy. Just to write. And for the first time in months, the words felt like they belonged to me.